In a previous video, I showed this pretty amazing 3D printed 6-scale bicycle kit from Scale BMX Builds, which can be found on Facebook. Since then, it has been screaming, "Build me," and that just needed to stop. This kit is dear to me, as it's a replica of this GT Pro Freestyle Tour team model that I bought new in 1987. It's gone through a few changes since then, but I still have it, and fortunately have the ability to take it out for a ride occasionally. I figured this would be a unique subject matter that no one has ever really seen before at a show. So I've decided to put this bicycle on the bench. And so there's the fork. It's so cool. It has the cable tie for the POTS mod that comes through the fork. I don't think that's actually functional. It has the gyro and headset on it, and the bottom bracket appears molded in. And has the bosses for the 990 brake and a separate seat post clamp, and that is just super cool looking. I mean, it even has the engraving for the little GT emblem that's stamped in the dropouts, just like the real thing. I'll set that aside over here, and I've already started on probably the most complicated thing, obviously, which would be the wheels. And so did a little bit of cleanup on the rims, had a little bit of 3D printing artifacts from the supports and a little bit of sanding that had to be done, so I cleaned all that up and then gave it a decent coat of Tamiya gloss black, and same with the hub. And what's neat about this kit is it comes with a wiring jig, which I've assembled a rim on, and this would be the rear hub. I've added a little piece of chrome foil to the center of the hub for the label that is on the GT hubs. And pay attention to the hub, because this one is missing the sprocket. That's how you know it's the rear hub, because the other front hub has bolts on the bearings on both sides. And so that slides on the post, and then the fun begins. Lacing a wheel. So basically you get a baggie of spokes, and there's one of them, and you're going to insert spoke into hole and do the whole thing. I've never done this, so wish me luck. So let's build a wheel. I've already gotten the first spoke into its little slot, and it's kind of ingenious how they go in. Each hole on the edge of the hub is elongated, so the spoke will kind of slide into it at that radial type angle. I got a pile of spokes over here, and then you just kind of go round the hub. Ta-da! One spoke bicycle wheel. One thing I did find, if you do lose a spoke, a purple guitar string. These are 0.016 diameter. And that's what the spokes are. And that is exactly the same scale size as the spokes that are in the bicycle. That's pretty cool. So if you need any more spokes, I don't know if they still make them in purple. This is just what I had in stock. But they're 0.016. For the final step, I think it's a safe thing to do, is, I know you're thinking this is nuts, just using the tube. I've kind of got a lot of experience using these tubes, and I'm just putting a little dab on the inner holes just to seal the back side of the spoke. And do you feel more comfortable doing this another way? By all means. But this is how I'm gonna do this. And then we'll come back and just kind of smear off the excess so I know that the tire still fits good. And a couple of my spokes that I dropped and didn't want to go find, I just cut some more. They're a little long, but I can trim those too. So believe it or not, once this dries, it's actually a very strong wheel. I was kind of surprised when I did the first one. So we're gonna let this dry and pry it off of, hopefully it pries off of the jig. All right, the glue is dried, and now it's time to just kind of work this thing off. Kind of twisting it, pulling it very carefully. I don't want to break it. And it's doing its thing. And there we go. One bicycle wheel. Got a couple of spokes that are a little long. I've got some tight nippers to nip those off and get that done and move on to tires and pedals and other things. Looks pretty cool.
Once the wheel was laced, I could not resist putting it into the frame to see how it looks. The sprockets and chain are all one piece. At this angle, there's a bit of an issue. How the hubs are designed, the spoke pattern is not prototypical with the real bike. It would require a completely different hub design to recreate the super lace wheels that the real bike has. Once I got both wheels laced, I couldn't resist mocking it up again to see what it would look like, which is totally rad. It's now time to get some paint on it.
So here is the bicycle frame, the GT Pro Freestyle Tour in 1/6 scale. And what I've done is I did a initial sanding to eliminate any kind of layer lines. I did that with, I believe, some 320 grit sandpaper. Then I applied some Mr. Finishing Surfacer 1500 black primer. Really like this stuff. This is a very, very nice product. After that dried, I went over all of that with some 2400 grit polishing cloths. And that really slicked all this up, and you can see there's just one little Z-shift just right in here and in there. And I think I've gotten that mostly out. And I also saw some of the areas where there's a curve had a little bit of polygoning. I guess, is that the term? I don't know. A little bit right here on the fork. But I mean, now this is like, feels so smooth. And I think once I get the Tamiya gloss black lacquer, it should look pretty slick. And then I can decal and then clear coat. One thing I did see is, for some curious reason, there was one of these bolt holes, like for the back of the brake, on the brake bridge, and I snipped that off. I thought about drilling that out, but I think that would have made the back of the bike a lot more fragile, and so I just basically snipped that off and sanded it out a little bit smooth. So same kind of thing, did the same thing with the seat post. Again, you can kind of see a little bit of the polygoning on that curve, but I mean, it feels so slick right now. I don't think I need any more primer. I'm gonna go straight into the gloss black, and same thing on the handlebars. A little bit up in here on the edge. But overall, this is just a fantastic 3D print. It's probably one of the finer ones that I've seen. Hats off to the fellows over on Scaled BMX Builds for offering this. And looking forward to get some paint on this and some decals on it. So now I have a nice black finish on the frame. This was Tamiya. I think it's whatever their black is, maybe TS6 possibly, I don't know. Gloss black. And then I put a couple of coats of the TS13 clear on it just to give it a little bit of protection. And I haven't even buffed this. I mean, this is just right out of the cans. And came out pretty good. That's a good start of the frame and a fork, and it looks pretty good. And the handlebar and stem combo, again, more gloss black. And finally, the seat post. So those are the main parts of the bicycle. But in order to decorate it or finish it, something very important had to be made. And these are the decals. And these were done same way how I've done all the decals for my models. This is on the white decal paper. And I spent a little bit of time drawing all of the vectors for each one of them. And then they'll all have to get carefully trimmed. And then I go back and I blacken the edges because this decal paper is white. And if you just simply apply them right after cutting, you'll have a fine white edge. And so I basically outline them with a Sharpie, and that will make that black edge, hopefully, or the white edge, hopefully go away. So let's get to trimming and put the decals on, see what they look like. I'm excited.
Once the decals were applied and sealed with more TS13 clear, it's beginning to really look like my bike. The hot pink squiggles on the black frame are just so late 80s. The paint bottle is placed for scale. It's time to get this thing finished. I have to admit, I'm very pleased with how this model came out. It looks quite convincing, photographed under my studio lights, and is quite faithful to the actual bicycle. Everything I measured when building it was dead on balls, 1/6 scale, right down to the spokes and the brake cables. The one-piece sprocket chain combo was a challenge to paint. I used some of the last of my Model Master aluminum buffing metallizer for the disc and chain ring, along with a custom mix nickel silver for the chain. A light wash between the links brings out the detail. The crankset was modified to look like the GT stamp profile set in the real bike. The pedals are replicas of the MKS graphites, which I still have, but the real bike now has mid-school Primo sealed pedals. Some that are familiar with these bikes might notice the dual rear brake cables coming off the gyro. This was a custom setup I came up with back in the day that I believe gave the 990 brake more leverage. It uses two ACS rotor brackets with the cables crossed. Crossing the cables made it even work better, and it still works great today. The front brake is probably my favorite part. I made decals for the Diacomp Nippon that is stamped in the real brake. These are probably the best side pull brakes ever made. The kit comes with some stands to hold the wheels, but I chose to make my own from brass and aluminum rod that is a more prototypical style rack. It was painted matte black to not take anything away from the rest of the bike. This model was a blast to build, and considering all of the others that are offered, I might just have to build another one sometime down the road. I hope you enjoyed seeing something other than a car on my channel. And as always, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. You know what to do, because I have all kinds of model car and more stories to tell. Thanks for watching.